you'll see adjustments made in this budget are due to the increases that we're all seeing, rising costs of our entrance fees into field trips for our summer camp programming and our after school programming, the entertainment that we get to come in for special events, that sort of thing, food and supplies, transportation, those sorts of things have all increased this year. Source Pond has increased their entrance fees for next summer. And so we've had to make adjustments for all of that. Justin noted that in athletics, he's seeing a 30% increase in athletic field paint. And that's been driven by the cost of the paint for the fields. And also he's adding some additional programs that will require more paint and more times to be done on the fields.
And in terms of opportunities for innovation and partnerships, HPRs were excited to continue to work with the Downtown Business Group. That's been a great connection to meet more of the business owners and the building owners, and also really to gain connection with the college staff. Heather Drynan's done an amazing job bringing in staff to meet college staff to meet town staff as well as business owners. So that's been a great connection. It's a lot easier to work together when you have a relationship outside of like a request or a project. So we're excited about that. We're also looking forward to working more with Greek Life to volunteer at our programs, continue to work with the Dartmouth Work Study program to staff our programs, and hopefully we'll be able to make some connections with other departments to help round out our special events. And then along that same lines, we're excited to work with our community partners in the development of the Ledyard Park downtown.
Any other questions for us?
Questions for Parks and Rec?
Trees.
Trees.
Those ash trees and our elm trees and a bunch of our street trees are being taxed, I think, by our climate and felt and stuff. How are you feeling about the trees?
So 2 years ago, we increased our contracted services in the ground side to address that exact issue. So we have been doing a lot more tree removals. This summer we took down the DeWitt elm right here in downtown. And that was, even though that tree had decades of Dutch elm disease treatments, it still succumbed to that. And that just had some, unfortunate internal decay. But with the emerald ash borer, we're seeing every time we go out and start doing tree inventories, we see more and more of that as we're just driving around and seeing the ash trees deteriorate. So I think right now with our contracted services, we're about 60% expended already this year on our tree care line, just because we have had a lot of tree removals. So it's just something, we did up that line. So, working within that budget constraint and taking them down as needed and replacing with different species that seem to be more resilient with, the current climate we have.
Thanks.
Yep.
Can we just ask about the cemetery, the natural burial space? Is that going forward? Is that part of the budget or maybe?
There is no budget impacts on that. So we do have the Cemetery Board of Trustees. So we've been working with them, meeting monthly, and we have.
Can we just ask about the cemetery, the
depth of green burials and redoing the ordinance? Some of the trustees weren't overly familiar with green burials, so it took a lot of meetings to kind of just start from scratch and get them on board and up to date on what that means and what the difference between a natural burial and a traditional burial is. But we're all on the same page now, so we're hoping that this spring, summer we'll be ready to go with opening Block 8 up to natural burials. We did survey Block 8 last summer. With all the plot lines and everything. So it's all laid out, ready to go. We just have to get the ordinance updated and go forward from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for our Parks and Rec team? No, thank you very much,
Thank you.
John.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. And I love that we can talk about a tree, a specific tree. That's just
I
awesome.
like the Dewitt tree. I mean, you know, it's very sad.
It's very sad. That was quite a treat. Yes, Rob. Yes, Nick.
Would it make sense if you join the Zoom meeting? I am in the Zoom, but is there a link I can send you? Or I can give you the number. I can read it to you.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
You're on TV, so something you may notice. They're there and litigation.
All right, we're good? Yeah, okay, all right. You go to the next slide. Apologies for the technical issue with it. We are back up and running and so fire, Mike.
Thank you. So the first slide is kind of like Ruby said, this is kind of went into our deep dive, and it kind of describes the fire department. We're kind of an all hazards, fire, EMS, rescue, hazmat. And then on the bottom it lists some of the different major components of what we do for fire protection. We have an ALS transporting ambulance. We do community risk reduction, hazardous material mitigation, technical rescue, and then inspections, including gas, oil, fire safety, and management. This is our organizational chart. So the chief, deputy chief, and then all the 4 lines to the left are our 4 different crews. We have 4 shifts of 5. And then to the right is our call department. We currently have call members in the Aetna and Hanover department, about 10 total. Probably 4 or 5 are really active. The rest are semi-active. We're trying to engage them a little bit more by getting them to come in monthly to do training, which is something we just started. Mission statement is small, you can read that. Some of the goals we have is we currently have 8 paramedics, 2 on a shift. And that's kind of our minimum. I think if we dropped one, having 1 on a shift could be going up for that paramedic. So we're looking at how to bring on new paramedics. We're finding that we're not getting paramedics to apply. It's not out there anymore. So the other option is to send our staff away to become paramedics. It takes about 2 years of training to do that. In our budget, we do have money for that to send them to school. We're trying to incentivize them to go. It's harder. In the past, they did a lot on their own time, and now it's harder to get people to spend. It's about 1,200 hours of training. So how do we support that there? So we're trying to figure out ways to do that to get some more paramedics on staff. Actually, our 20-year employee, as announced earlier, Jared Lanahan, is probably about 2 years out, and he's a paramedic. So I'd like to get somebody in school now to replace him. We can go back. I like how you work. So goal 2 is, and I've talked about this before, is our callbacks. We're call people in with the duty crews tied up like that right now in Hartford, and about 45% of the time we get what we ask for. So how do we kind of incentivize that? And in the budget this year, they get a 2-hour callback, and I'm posing a 3-hour callback to try to incentivize that. So that's when we were doing that. And then the last goal is to kind of improve our health and wellness. We do a physical fitness plan, and then about to implement a mental health plan. We're hiring a mental health therapist that will meet with each member annually, and plus meet with the whole department, and just talk to them if they detect any issues, kind of get them on the right path. So we're going to start that soon, probably before the FY26. Okay. So this is a budget. I broke it into 2 different. So we have the 2 different funds, the fire fund and the ambulance fund. So we'll start with the fire fund. Some of the notable things is on the bottom of the variance for proposed 26, we're down. In big part, that is a capital improvement expenditure. This current year, we have just over $300,000 in CIP that we're spending, and I'll show you later that we have about $99,000 in this fiscal year, next fiscal year's budget. So that's what most of that is, right?
Correct, yes, and without that impact, it's about an overall 3% in those years, because if you take out.
Yeah, so that's that, and here's the ambulance side. We are up, as you can see, 11%. I'll show you what that is in just a minute. But we have no capital. We didn't have any capital this year. We don't have any capital improvements or expenditures in next year's budget also. So we'll go next one. So significant changes, and that's that part of the ambulance fund is in our ambulance vehicle equipment. We're at $43,000. This is for ventilators, laryngoscopes, and a townwide AED maintenance plan. So kind of going one by one. The laryngoscopes is after something we'll talk about, but the equipment that we use to intubate people, put breathing tubes in the mouth. And the ones we have now, they don't support anymore. So we're kind of buying them parts as we need, the replacement parts, but we'll have to replace those and go to a different model. The ventilators we had were very simple, basically adult child. And it should be by weight base, and it was very simplistic. Our medical director asked us not to use them anymore. And then kind of through the COVID years, found that the ventilators are needed. So most of that $43,000, about $33,000 of it is for 2 ventilators, 1 for each ambulance, that we can not only do ventilation for people that are breathing, but also CPAP and BiPAP. This is positive pressure for people that have respiratory illnesses. And then the last thing is the fire department maintains all the AEDs in town. And we've just been taking it out of our operation equipment for ambulance. And we put a line item that's $1,000, $4,500 to maintain those across town-wide. So for pads and batteries.
Maybe we have.
In town? Oh, a lot.
So,
Yeah, I mean, PD does theirs, the ones that cruisers, but we keep building every year and it's good.
we have saved.
Yes, yeah. Like I think when I first came here, credit for us saves, is very minimal and we're seeing a couple of years now. So it makes a difference. The more we get out there, it's better. So we're trying to just support all the JVs that we have. And those are just the ones in town, schools, and there's a lot of other ones that are in the town. So that's been a big part of the 11% increase in the ambulance. We hope to purchase it with the COVID relief money, just weren't able to. So this is, we're trying to do this. So we currently are full staffed. We have one person that's on probation. We have no proposed increases to staff in this next coming fiscal year. Although college officers will look at either down the road, either a fire inspector, or if we can't continue to do, I'm going to try a few things as far as like encouraging people to come back for callbacks. But again, when I get that tipping point for call volume, at what point do we look at 6 on shift? We're not there yet. It's just something I'm kind of looking at now, and it kind of goes along with callbacks.
You say probation, it's a new.
No, I haven't. We're not in probationary period, so thank you.
So on the ambulance fund, it looks like personnel is down quite a bit, but operations is up. Is that just?
So I'm just gonna say that I think that, those numbers may not be accurate or reflecting. And unfortunately, I was out of town unexpectedly late last week, or I partnered with Mike. Really the personnel costs to the ambulance fund are the interfund charge because all of the personnel really are held in the fire fund. And so, last year, those charges from the fire department were, $814,000. This year they are at $848,000, and that represents a 4% increase.
So when you call out, it's ambulance response, that just kind of automatic charge there. That have people.
As far as our personnel, it's just that we allocate about 25% of our staff to the ambulance fund. Just kind of, generally not per call.
It's a driver on our contract services.
I'm sorry.
And it's a driver on our contract.
Correct.
So that's how we move costs for the contracted services.
We're lining launch. So we put 25% in. We don't want to put too much on that and price ourselves out of business for those things. So our capital improvement this year, like I said, is $99,000. We have an overhead door at Aetna, and then replace one vehicle at the Hanover station. And that's it for this year. So there's a big drop in our expenditures for fire. So challenges we have are hiring, recruiting new employees with less experience and training. So we can do it, we can send them to school, but they just can't onboard them as quick, and it has an impact on our budget, our overtime budget. So how do we do that? We really have no staff shortages. But like I said, we may be looking 2, 4, 10 years down the road, when is that tipping point to go to 6 on a shift? And is there a need for a fire inspector? I didn't drag my feet on that because the rental housing inspector, I think, can play a role in maybe take care of some of our needs. So wait to see how that plays out. And then opportunities, we're always looking to join with other departments. Currently working with Captain Barton and the PD with this mental health thing to try to combine efforts there. Part of that program is we have a peer support group. So hoping both departments can get together and make that and kind of support ourselves. So we're always looking to join other departments to we can help. And that's it.
Thank you. We have some questions along the way, but support members, do you have any questions? So I have the private hydrant plans. What is that?
Want to take a stab at it?
So yeah, I like the role. So for me, that's a pass through. So I collect that money through the fire fund, but that it was $40,000. Slowly, Peter's gone down and down, but it goes directly to the water company. So we just collect that revenue through the fire funds, through the fire districts, and then it goes straight to the water company.
It's a way to offset the infrastructure fire service themselves. And it's a way to disperse it, just the water rate and there's like extra stuff.
So like a restaurant in town had a fire hydrant in its yard?
No.
What is a private hydrant?
Oh, so that's different. So I think what Kara's talking about is just the general hydrant. Private hydrants are like Fresno and Kendall, those large complexes. They have hydrants in there that they pay the water company as a private hydrant.
I was thinking that definition. Okay. And that's what you wanted to, agree with you with that.
And I see there is payment in lieu of tax. What is that?
Reservoir three, then negotiated come off of tax building. We negotiated in the road taxes because it was argued by some of those in the area. They aren't served by the water districts, so their tax rate would be impacted by the tax exempt status of Reservoir three. And so the town pays a payment of taxes to the cost of that.
Right, thank you.
So, I was just gonna, for me, talk about this, and perhaps this would be on our to-do list in 2026, is really dive into this fire district stuff. And because
We've begun that discussion, and there is some creative thinking implemented in the consideration. There's some, in the reality is we need to figure out how to deal with our capital improvements, our capital assets, and one of the next big expenditures is going to be our power. And the question is how do we address that? So we started a conversation fairly recently.
yeah, I mean, it's hard, serve everyone in town, not just fire district.
Kind of. It's so big, we don't take it like way on that. No, it's just those dirt roads want support.
It is, yes, it's a complicated budget, lots of in and outs, process that's I think, it's, our special overtime wages budgets of 34%, so that's kind of a big problem. Is there?
That's, well, correct me if I'm wrong, we combined two overtime line items into one. So we had fire suppression overtime and then we had fire training overtime. We found it wasn't getting taken out of the right line items, so we just combined them and I'll just track the expenditures on us. So there's another, you look down at an offset. Yeah, if you look down in training, there should be a training overtime it's zero.
Yes, I see it. Okay, yes.
And this was again revealed through our process that we discovered that it's virtually impossible to figure out how you track the overtime. And it's easier to consolidate like them tracking internally what should be provided as. But from finance and accounting perspective, it's easy to have 13% of your training budget expended at 50% of the year, when in reality we're much higher, means that we're not costing line item of the time sheets for accounting paper. They just did a 9.
And I track every hour of overtime and where it's being spent, so I can keep track.
Thank you. Do you want to move on to payments?
That was it. But if you have any questions, buddy, what's good?
Ambulance. Service charge Medicare street nomination benefits dropping $235. Yeah, and that's a negative number. So okay, it's one of the negative expenses.
Right, because it's an offset to, and that really comes through, our medical billing company. So it's the way the numbers come through is that it's based on our fees and the charges, but then we have offsets based on, what Medicare, Medicaid, what they disallow. So these, you really, those are just different aspects of the revenue, and that's why they're contra revenues in this account.
It's right, come back from Medicare for service.
Correct.
Got it.
And they actually occur, you can see spread over the 3 accounts, but we have it as one budget.
We have a per capita from general fund, is that, what does that represent?
So this is the town, the Hanover per capita.
Correct. So the per capita rate is set, and those are applied to the Hanover population, and as well as the Lyme and Norwich are captured on the community per capita view.
That's based on usage.
Well, per capita. And all three are the same, whether it's Hanover, not over to my families.
And the revenue is here, but the offsetting expense or appropriation is tucked under Parks and Rec in the social welfare budget. So you would find it under on that bill.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Police.
Good evening. First, we have the police department and the communication center. We have it broken up into two presentations. One will be parking after this. From our Hanover Police Department team, we have Director Douglas Hackett, the Communication Center, Lieutenant Mike Scabola. And Assistant Elizabeth Bradford.
Big titles.
Trying to think which title. She has a lot of titles, but I'm trying to think which title would be more. All right. From our deep dive, we went into some of our mission statements and stuff. As far as the overview, the Hanover. Today, we're here to talk about the Hanover Police Department, the Regional Communication Center. We provide 24/7 police communications and services to the town of Hanover. Here's our organizational chart. Currently we have a vacancy leading the chief of police slot. We have a director of communications, administrative assistant, a captain, and Lieutenant Scabola. Each shift has a sergeant, a corporal, and patrol officers on that shift. And the communication center has 2 communications personnel on shift as well. As here, we went into the deep dive. We covered this a little more in depth. The mission of the men and women of the Hanover Police Department is to provide professional and compassionate police service through partnerships that build trust, reduce crime, create a safe environment, and enhance the quality of life in our community. Our goals for 2026, recruitment and retention. We've had some successes. We're in our second year of our 2-year strategic plan. Goal number 2, training and professional development. And goal number 3 is employee health, wellness, and resiliency. Our police budget overview for proposed fiscal year 2026, our total budget is $4,608,000. It's a 3.22% variance from the prior year, and that's mainly due to the COLA increase in our personnel costs. Proposed significant changes. One issue that's significant is our fingerprinting processing fees that people come to the police department to get fingerprinted for different licensing and applications that they need to have proof that they've been fingerprinted, they've had a background check. The SAU has recently purchased a machine for New Hampshire residents, so that's reduced our revenue by 50% in that area for the PD. Patrol special detail fees, $120,000. We're recommending potentially increasing the outside detail billing as of July 26th. And there's two options that we're looking at, potentially changing the rate to $90, which would generate $135,000 in revenue. Changing the rate to $100 would generate $150,000 in revenue. Of these two options, we're looking at changing the rate to 100, and that would include the rate for the wear and tear on our cruisers that are assigned to the officers when they go and work these details. It passes that rate along to the hiring entity, whoever's hiring that police detail. So that incorporates that fee into there. So those are two options that we have to incorporate some revenue there.
So it's a typo on there. It should be July 1 to 25, not July 1 to 26. Then we're recommending it. And right now, if we do an outside detail billing for somebody that we can't provide a Hanover police officer, we pass along the costs of other agencies, and they are charging between $90 and $100 per hour. And the entities are paying it, but we've also found that we're kind of, being a pass-through for other agencies when we can't do that. And there's a bunch of different ways that could be reviewed as well with our cruiser fees. So. But I just want to point out, July 1 of 26 is not the right date. I was dealing with fiscal year 26. July 1 of this year is what we're talking about.
What is the current rate?
What's that? The current rate is $80 an hour. Yeah. And 25 for the cruiser. If it's right now, the way that it's laid out in the raising fees is if it's actively being used in a outside detail, like a construction detail. But all of our details require an officer to use a cruiser, and whether it's sitting there or actively being used, it's tying up that equipment. And the $25 per hour that we charge right now goes back into the general fund, but there's been discussions about whether that should go into the CIP to offset the cost of the actual equipment going forward. So there's a few different areas to consider. But right now, we are probably one of the lowest charging departments for these outside details compared to a lot of partners.
And we talked about this several years ago, and this rate supposed to include
It used to. It used to. It stopped being that when the retirement system changed their rules a few years back. So patrol officers that were hired that were not vested by 2011, it no longer goes for their retirement.
Right.
So that has changed, and we have. So it used to be that all these outside details, it would be part of your, when you got a buyout and when you get paid, it would go to your retirement. It no longer does that. And for the majority, I don't know that there's anybody currently, maybe Dan. Yeah. So they don't get paid. They don't get paid anything from retirement. It doesn't count toward their retirement if they work in outside detail. It used to.
So it's like a freelance job.
Kind of, yeah. It just doesn't
get a 1099.
It goes on their W-2 that they actually earn this money.
Okay.
But the total amount that they're being paid doesn't count as part of their salary for their New Hampshire retirement system. They don't get the benefit of having that extra money as part of their retirement system. So where we were paying into it before, because ultimately that paid them, to no longer do that for the majority of our current. So there's an admin fee in between. What the officers make is not the $90 or $100. It's in the contract and it changes yearly. So there's the difference in between the admin fees and coming back to the town. I hope that helps.
Yes.
All right, next we have a $85,850 decrease in our transfer from the capital reserve fund. This significant increase is due to not purchasing cruisers this year. In 2027, we will be purchasing one vehicle, will be up for replacement, but we don't have any scheduled to purchase this year. What's that coming here? Transfer from the capital reserve fund for dispatch has a $70,000 increase, and this is for the purchase of a precast radio building for the Hayes Hill Tower.
Precast concrete.
Yeah.
Spire.
No, it's a 9 by 10 building. It's concrete walls with electrical, heating and air conditioning units to check the investment of our radio system. It's currently in a 1980s wooden building. It's in better days.
Nice.
All right, next line item, we have police admin full-time salaries, an increase of 109,892. That's the change of one FTE position from patrol to admin. That's a lieutenant. Anticipated chief salary difference and forward increases. So that's that line item. The next line item has to do with the police admin UBPA. That's the Upper Valley Prosecutorial Association. It's an increase of $8,475. And again, that's a formula that's used to calculate our cost in participation of that association is a 3-year aggregate. So they look at a 3-year total. So if you have 1 year with significant extra work, it doesn't impact you. It's spread over 3 years. So look at that formula. And our formula coming up is going to be 8,475 for next fiscal year. Police admin uniforms and clothing, an increase of $2,000. This increase is due to uniform costs and the transfer of one full-time equivalent position over to the admin. That's the lieutenant position that we recently acquired. Next line item, police admin machinery and equipment. That's down $8,500. And that's due to fewer anticipated access control locks. Those are the cipher locks that we have that provide security at each headquarters. Next line item, patrol full-time salaries, decrease of $105,260. And that's basically an increase in the COLA, transfer of one full-time equivalent to admin. That's accounting for that. Patrol professional development, it's going to be up $4,250. And that's basically based on the state PSTC's required annual training increase of 24 hours per officer. So we added $200 per officer to the formula that we use to require that training for each sworn officer so that they can recertify at the end of the year. Next line item, patrol uniforms and clothing, it's up $3,000. And this is an increase due to uniform costs and anticipated new hires. We currently have 3 new hires in our pipeline, 1 certified and 2 that are potentially going to be scheduled to go to the May Academy. Next line item, dispatch full-time salaries, it's up $33,089, and that's based on the increase of the 3.2% COLA. Additional explanations and wish list. Transfers to the capital reserve, we have $16,000 from patrol and $7,800 from communications. This increase is due to updating the capital reserve funds with more accurate cost increases post-pandemic. And we've had to reevaluate these numbers with the higher price cost of equipment. Wish list item, we're requesting an additional $10,000 for department-wide tuition reimbursement to support our recruitment and retention effort. Similar programs are being offered by other departments in the state that we compete with for hiring, and they've shown success in that program.
They would have put up with that 10,000 was not.
So we share some of what you give us an example of what.
Sure. So that's a wish list item that we had put in there so that officers or other members of the department, professional staff, communications officers can attend college courses. Right now, the state has several programs where they pass some state laws, bills that actually pays for their first course each semester to be free and covered by the state. As a statewide retention effort for police officers, they're doing that, and first responders. And some departments are showing success in building on that by having another pot of money that the officers or members of that department can take from to take an additional course that's reimbursed to attain their associate degree, their bachelor's degree, to better prepare them for promotional opportunities within those agencies and to help with retention. One agency specifically that we modeled this after has expressed that they've had success in recruiting people, and that some people stay in that position longer, even if it's 2 classes a year, maybe one in the spring, one in the fall. They reported that people may stay there 2 or 3 years to help finish their degree and to acquire that training. And if you spread out that cost over the cost that we expend to train police officers and to retain them, it's nominal, and it has proven successful to these other agencies. So we put that in there as kind of a wish list item. Personnel costs, administratively, we have 4 FTEs in the police department. 1 vacancy right now is the chief. We have 2 admin professional staff members. Patrol, we have 17 full-time equivalents, and communications, we have 10 full-time equivalents. Currently, we have 3 patrol officers in the pipeline that would make us fully staffed in that category once they're on and they're trained. We currently have 2 vacancies in communications, and 1 is currently in the process, and we have another process tomorrow with a potential second applicant. I believe that's it. That's all the applications we have. So again, we're screening and move applicant tomorrow, but we do have 1 in the pipeline with communications. We have no proposed staffing changes, additions, reductions, or realignment during this fiscal year. Capital expenses. Proposed capital needs are $257,300 for the purchase of a dispatch radio, precast building, and police safety equipment. The cost $70,000 for the radio building and $16,500 for the police safety equipment. And transfers to the reserves are estimated to be $170,800 to the CIP.
So the was calendar 257, didn't detail 70 and 60. Oh, the transfers to the
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, challenges and opportunities. Again, we have a challenge that we spoke to in our deep dive: recruitment and retention, our increased training requirements of 24 hours for a sworn officer, and technology. Opportunities, our community outreach, hosting some regional trainings where we have a grant funded training that I'm negotiating for right now, so that hopefully we can have them come. We can host it regionally, but it would be free to our agency. So that's one way we're looking at meeting this new demand. Collaborative partnerships and CALIA accreditation, community outreach, and we want to continue to build trust and transparency with the community. So those are our opportunities and our challenges. Any questions?
Thank you, Jim. Alex, questions or something?
How we can have a in constant service, maintain the things. We can use we'll give you all the requests and
Is there any opportunity for cross training between fire agents that can help meet some of the demands that Mike is looking for in terms of having multiple calls at the same time and using
In areas of EMS, we cross-train a little bit. We co-teach CPR, AED courses, and we share those equipment. We just sent some AEDs, as the chief mentioned, over him that were surplus for him to refurbish and send over to the highway department to the DPW. We'll put him on the parking garage. So we do a lot in the realm of EMS. Joint leadership training.
And then we have a big event coming up in July with the college and fire for active shooter. So we do that.
As far as like staffing and ambulance, it's the training's totally different requirements.
Yeah.
I have seen that model that you're speaking to, like a public safety officer, which is joint combining a little more at airports and different venues like that. But I think currently that's the status that we have.
Yeah, it just seems like you mentioned a while ago, chief, fire department is moving not away from fires, but you're fighting less fires. You're doing more, rescue and medical and all that kind of stuff. And I was just imagining, police officers becoming EMT or something like that, all need some of those needs. Maybe it's a stupid idea.
It's difficult to get the training just to maintain their police certifications. You're gonna take them off the road even more, go maintain their continued EMS licensure. You'd end up with some like constant training.
I had a couple of questions that are maybe census related in terms of who's in jobs, but I saw the flex plan increase is 23%. I know a big increase in the amount charged by the capital project, 13%, which is on the plan. But it's interesting that personnel issues probably higher in the sense.
Yes, I think it's a combination of, first of all, the benefits are being, really built up employee by employee this year, really taking a lot of care, and taking more time than we had last year. I do think, that between these presentations and when we consolidate the budget, I'll be taking, a careful look at that. The numbers that are calculating out at times compared to, the use 50% for the year looked a little heavy. So I think it's conservative the way it's built, but that is based on, the assumptions of the employees. Now, we do have some openings, and so those openings were being assumed to be filled by some by single individuals, some by two-person. And so those assumptions can change, but I think the numbers are conservative, but I think they're about.
And it's saw the investigator salary down 30,000, right? We had a change in coverage.
So what we did was, in the past, we have budgeted for investigations completely separate. And it used to be a Sarah's position. And the officer that's working in that area is under patrol. And so we had a conversation about whether it really needs to be separate at all, just for one person. So we adjusted it to what a patrol officer would be, because truthfully, the open position is a vacant position. And so we just readjusted it, and actually it's closer to what it should be.
Thank you. Questions?
Are there enough fingerprints at SA70 and the HPD?
Yeah, so we, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do fingerprinting services. No, but there are times when it's really, really being crushed by it. It used to be that we handled everything for the SAU. And so every New Hampshire resident that they had working for them would come to our station to get fingerprinted. When they got a machine to actually do it themselves, it decreased our walking traffic a lot. But everything for Marion Cross, we need to do. Because Vermont will not take prints that are from school. So, and then we have the general public. So when you start looking at the revenue, it comes down 50%.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all you do. Good luck on the hires. Plus, it's great. Good luck.
Thank you for.
Yes. Yeah, it's so hard, but
Our parking team, Sergeant Swain and Supervisor McEwen. So the Hanover Parking Division, we handle parking enforcement and the management of the parking spaces and the parking garage. Yeah.
You took my direction very seriously. But
Does it work?
yes. Never mind.
Parking overview. So the parking enforcement, we handle the enforcement in town of the town ordinance, and it's number 6, and we also manage parking spaces in the parking garage. Parking Division of the Hanover Police Department oversees parking in Hanover and enforces the town parking ordinance. We have goals for 26. Goal number 1 is to collaborate with the parking committee and other stakeholders to determine the best practices for parking related functions and system upgrades. Our goal number 2 is to upgrade safety measures in the stairwells and staircases, the parking garage, where we need a repair. Goal number 2. Goal number 3 is to explore efficiencies within operations and incorporated update best practices. Our proposed budget for 26, total budget is $2,465,000. It's a variance of 6% from last year. Proposed significant changes, transfer from reserves, $77,400. That's for planned stairwell maintenance and improvements. This repairs one of the stairwells of the 2 that need to be repaired. If we repair both, it would be $116,680. We're currently looking at options for that. Budgetary use of the parking fund balance, $96,339. The deficit in anticipated revenue will result in the need to use the fund balance. Recommendation is to review parking meter and parking fine rates. Next line item, temporary parking meter rentals, down $25,000. The revenue is reduced by the $25,000 due to a decrease in construction rentals that are estimated this time period. That's due to some current projects potentially coming to an end. Next line item, electric vehicle charging stations. Currently there's 2. They're located in the garage. They have 4 ports. They generate $11,200 annually. Next line item, parking administrative and full-time salaries. This is an increase due to COLA and annual salary increases of $35,373. Next line item, parking system consulting. This is $25,000, and this is proposed funding to hire a consultant to look at the best practices and support the efforts of the parking committee using accurate data analysis and to ensure that we're currently using the best practices that are the most efficient for the community and for the town. Next line item, pay by phone convenience fees, which are up $115,000 is the line item for this. This is increased by $5,000. Next line item, advanced transit. This line item is $334,056. It's the same bill as last year from advanced transit. Fixed route support is $205,306, and the shuttle service is $128,750. Next line item, parking garage building repair and maintenance is $15,000. And this line item is speaking to a new fire suppression changeover, which would be a new expense for that particular repair and maintenance. First, next one. Yeah. Personnel. Currently in the parking enforcement, we have 4 full-time equivalents. First, I'll start off by saying the parking staff is full at this time. We have the 4 FTEs and 1 part-time. The parking facility has 1 full-time FTE, 1 part-time with benefits, and 2 part-time with no benefits. No proposed staffing changes, additions, reductions, or realignments are scheduled for this fiscal year. Capital expenses. Currently, we're looking at stairwell maintenance. I spoke to a little bit earlier, $77,400 is for one of the stairwells to be repaired. Currently, we have an outstanding quote for both stairwells to be repaired at $116,680, and that plan is currently being reviewed. Some challenges and opportunities. Key challenges that we face are the rising costs of the convenience fees for credit card usage. Ongoing challenge repairs require the parking garage, maximizing parking garage utilization through the system upgrades. We do see opportunities for cost savings with potential implementation of innovations such as virtual permitting or different best practices that are out there that hopefully we can find to make our system more efficient. Any questions?
Jim, should that, questions John part I have to do, but
Yeah, I have a question about the credit card. We talk about this every year. I know they're going up every year. I know that nobody's going to start paying, but actually, are there other systems out there where the service charge is less expensive? I've been to other communities and I've seen different systems, but I don't think that doesn't mean that they're better. It's different.
This was one of the areas that we had a consultant and wanted to try to find out what other agencies are doing and what, and then you've got different fees for different ways of paying throughout the entire town. And is there a way to consolidate? Is there a way to make it more efficient? So that requires expertise that we thought we would try to ask and test the consultants.
It seems like a really good question.
Is there a way to really pass the cost on to the customer?
We tried to do that originally, and we were told, at least the former finance director was saying that we can't legally do that. So I don't know the right answer or if anything's changed about that, but we used to have a fee associated with every time somebody swiped a card in one of the meters, and that was shut down pretty quickly. So I'm not sure what the true answer is now and how people are dealing with it in other municipalities.
Right, like I don't pay to the grocery store, but when I donate to not-for-profits, we'll give me an option to operate it.
Right, and I think,
People probably would.
yeah. So it's a complicated thing, but, at 115,000 for the pay-by-phone fees and that they keep going up and, it's hard to predict. And when you're putting together a budget, well, how many people are going to use it next year? How many fees are we going to pay and how many times? So.
The reality of it is with the kiosks, projecting out companies that we talk to, we kind of have dueling purposes for the kiosks. Some people like to use coin and they don't like to use their credit card. It's the interface with the customer that we keep that option for them. We've been told by some of the companies that the kiosks are kind of getting phased out in the next 10 or so years. And it'll be Apple, or credit card, which will raise those fees. So I think there's two ways of looking at it. It's the equipment that we use to answer your question. Yes, there are other ways, but there's also, to her point, with the consultant is, can we negotiate those fees or find somebody who does that processing at a cheaper rate? Some of the fees are transferred on to the customers with the apps. If you've ever used any of the 3 apps that we have, each one has a different rate that goes on to the customer. That's a service charge for the app. We don't get any of that money, and it really doesn't have any with the processing fees.
So that's separate.
That's separate. So one app, our in-house app, if you will, charges like 25 cents per transaction, where Park Mobile charges 40. That has nothing to do with the town or any revenue that we approve from it. And it's transferred solely on the customer. We really don't have a choice.
Oh, what we don't have to do is go around and collect a bunch of coins.
Correct. What that offset cost is versus the credit card fees, and I think it's probably cheaper to go around and collect, just to be honest. But it's a necessary evil, if you will, because we can't get it.
Oh, never going away. So but thank you.
And that 5,000 increase was a projected cost increase based on what we've seen in the last couple of years with the credit card process.
And the important thing here is stay on top of it. We get more information.
The surface lot permit parking line items, does that include on-street permit parking revenue as well?
On street. So that is just the parking lot leases like Banwell, Coldwell, Allen Lot. That does not include the meter street parking.
Right. So we have some streets that have permit parking on them. Where would I find that?
Like Hubby 11.
Like Hubby 11 and
The Banwell lot, West Wheelocks,
Webster.
Robert, and
So Webster's the college.
We don't, those are not our. So that, the Webster Avenue parking is actually a transfer in spaces from those being permitted to the college with our enforcement to the Thompson Center employee permit parking spaces. It's kind of a swap. So they get the revenue from enforcing the Thompson Center permits that we issue, and we get the revenue from enforcing the Dartmouth permit enforcement, which the college issues.
And they're like the same number of spots or just like?
I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't think it's on that. I don't know when that agreement came into place. It's like that was 1 year ago. So maybe not.
So Jim, you would think we're using, I'm guessing use of this for maybe 6,000, something like that. This kind of thought that we were in black and reducing prior year.
One of the things that happened over the last couple of years is we've had an influx of revenue from the POP projects where they were paying a ton of money in fees. We kept our projection at 75,000, which is what we thought should be. And regardless of that, knowing that that was going away, that is going away. And so now the catch up is we've reduced our anticipated revenue in that line item, but also that overpayment for the last 2 years of that stuff as of fiscal year 26 at some point. They're going to start paying month to month. So that creates a hole. That's one of them.
So it's just construction related parking.
Yeah, so they would rent pretty smoothly. Because we don't normally catch $20 a day for parking space, 7 days a week. In terms of our
Right. And that's reflective of that.
Like in our
Projected loss.
Yeah.
They paid, or they're anticipating paying fully through March. And then they're gonna look at that, whether they need to reduce some spots or they leave. And some of that will be offset by meter parking, or it'll go back to revenue generating meter parking, but it won't be at the scale that it was.
So we would have been in a worse situation over the last couple of years had we not had that construction going on. And now it's starting to hit reality.
And I will say, based on the statements are not finally audited, but based on the unassigned fund balance at the end of 2024 that the auditors have provided, plus the windfall in the temporary parking, even with an expenditure of 97,000, we would still have an undesignated fund balance of about 70%. So within the 5 to 10, that's the guidelines for the parking fund. I think an important comment, though, that was made is that today this budget reflects no increase in fines or parking fees. And what it would take to balance the fund is that $97,000. So if that's not acceptable, that level of expenditure, then we would have to replace it with other. So, that's the trick.
Yes. Thank you. So, Colin, I just emailed everybody the expenses, but not included in the packet. So we had a parking revenue of the expense spreadsheet wasn't included, so that's rather than now. Tomorrow at 9, the parking committee is doing its first meeting. So we put in many that we did. And there's a lot of we can do, so we're planning on getting into all that stuff.
Can you update us on what the parking committee is and who's on that and how it's going?
Yeah, right now. Can we do the committee reports?
Well, I could ask them. I was going to ask them.
Right.
So maybe it's a better question because you guys are here, and that was one of your goals, right? So
We were invited to that meeting. We're going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, no, the probably is,
There's always been a parking committee in the paper, but. What is the parking?
CPCNH. I like that too.
There's another one.
So the idea is, the downtown business group is looking at inside. Great, has reached out to town staff to work with them. Solutions to some parking challenges. Okay. And part of this, parking staff and police, and I'll get it to them. At the end of the day, this body is to choose how to move to the very bottom of recommendations, whether or not the deeper down section of the select. This is not
Many years ago, there was a parking and transportation board, and it was made up of people from college, and Bill Backman was one of the select board members very involved. And it was back when the fund had a great deal of money, and there was a lot of things that they could do and project and everything. And like over time, it expanded. And but now there's a desire to look at all the different options out there. So.
And part of the membership include the gas transit, some of the other.
Yes.
Transit providers.
Correct.
Yeah, so it was really eclectic. Yeah. I have a real simple question, like the EV charging station revenue, how does that work in the parking garage? So you pay a parking fee and maybe.
You pay the fee at the charging station, and you pay even also. So.
Yeah. And that 11.2 revenue are you tracking the cost of the electricity? That, or is that you just get it out of it? How do you get the revenue?
So we get, every month, we get revenue that comes in, and they charge us about $90 of fees, and the rest is all revenue to us. And that is the extent of my knowledge, because I do the billing, but Peter does the electric, everything about it, Peter comes out of Peter's. But we used to make almost nothing, and it almost broke even for a while. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a significant increase in revenue, which hadn't been accounted for in our budget for a very long time. I think we had $500 in there before. Now it's 11.2, and it's just it's getting used, and we're seeing the benefit now.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for?
Joanne, in the expenses, it looks like it's like 1,800 for the electricity.
Still making cash.
One correction on the budget. The garage validation program is set, I think, at $500 or something. That's actually higher, but we were recording some of those in the permanent. It's a wash in terms of the budget, because its revenue is equal. But line items, we've corrected that line item to reflect it. Probably somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a year for the validation program rather than $500. But whatever that increases was out of the permanent parking that it was recorded. Just so you know, so that program is being.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And thanks for all of your time. Thank you.
And with that last one, employee validation or customer validation?
It's the garage validation. You can buy garage validation tickets essentially to give out to whoever you choose at a 75% hour range. So it subsidizes employees, customers, whoever you choose.
It's not like one.
Yeah, primarily Jim Rubens has been buying them, but it has been an increase.
So I have to ask him what is he?
Yeah, we can ask him. It gives an obvious head.
So let's do that to, business requiring inclusion. With the indulgence of several numbers, and it's recognition. The rating here. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you waiting for it to your topic? No.
No.
You just hear it now.
I'm here. Members of the walk.
Sorry, sorry, got it, okay, and are there any others here? Yes, okay, are you all here, like, walk?
I'm here to talk about, like, there's some comments about the college and Wheelock Street.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah.
Got it, okay, all right. Thank you, so we're gonna get that, yes, we're gonna get that. Yes.
Nice, so meeting.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes.
going to the same place. So the queue or stack occurs today. The queue or stack occurs no matter what we do to this intersection. So the conversation then is how do we enhance the intersection? We collectively have landed on alternative 4. Alternative 4 is shown on the screen. You'll see some bump outs on the sidewalk, shortening the crossing area on both sides of Wheelock. You'll see some layout and design layout for the transit hub that's going back in when this project is completed, so that remains a functional location for the transit hub. And you'll see some demarcation of the crosswalks themselves.
Okay, can I just stop for one second? This is town project, college project, a combined effort project.
This will be a college-funded project as part of the conclusion of the Hopkins. So there's some time issues here that we are coordinating with them, fixing or restoring the area that they're using that is public lands today, where the transit hub goes, the sidewalks that they've impacted, other items. So that this gives us the opportunity to have that restoration project focused on these improvements. And that's where we stand.
So when you're looking at, Rob, the curb cut will extend significantly, right? So that black line is basically going to be all concrete now.
This gray line here, this black line will become the new curb.
Yep. So there's a much narrower crossing, particularly on the western crossing. Yeah.
On both sides.
Both sides.
Both sides. Okay. Yep.
To follow up on Carrie's question, it's college funded as part of the Hopkins renovation?
I don't worry about where the funding comes from. It was just something that we've been trying to address since the renovation of the Hood Museum. And it's part of what we do. And as we move forward, for example, the joint partnership on college came out of the town's support of the college using College Street as an area to do lay down and construction for Reed and Thornton and Dark Hall. So those are the types of trade-offs that we typically try to come up with solutions to and enable the project in exchange for enhancements.
But as to the cost of maintaining whatever costs are associated with maintaining, that's the town's. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Currently the
Okay.
So the Hopkins Center does have some unique features built into this, and that is snow melt under their assets. So there's some things that are happening there. There's other conversations about broader improvements on these. So at the end of the day, I can walk through all the alternatives, but this is the preferred alternative. We landed on it for a whole host of reasons, including ease of winter maintenance. It even included an island, impacted turn radiuses and snow removal. It also impacted our safety vehicles, our truck or anything else. So that's our thought process. We know this is a high traffic corridor. We know that it's a transit route. We know that it's in theory the ambulance route for dispatching and response routes for the Vermont side response coming across the bridge. They're supposed to, in theory, go to South Park and then to the hospital, but there's no preventing them from taking alternatives. So this is the design solution. Happy to answer any specific questions, comment on how we've landed here or the process. The process included conversations with NHDOT as it relates to a range of design questions. It included some vertical alignment conversations regarding site distance So all of those things were taken into consideration. I do want to comment that Erica Wagonic, the person who prepared this report, the firm that prepared this report, in my experience, has the credentials to do the deep dive analysis and come up with recommendations. I will always take over, my gut reaction. I guess the best way to say it is a previous professional planner.
Yes.
With some transportation experience.
And what are you looking for from the select board tonight?
So, I mean, ultimately.
It's Pete's decision, isn't it?
But
Isn't it Pete Kovaki's decision?
it is at the end of the day, but we want you to be aware that this proposal is coming forward. And obviously the college is looking for some buy-in before they spend final design dollars and construct this intersection. So, from my perspective, the opportunity for you to see it and ask questions, to get a response from staff either now or shortly down the line, we're happy to entertain.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, comments? Select board members?
So there was a recommendation or talk anyway in this, adding a light at that intersection. And it sounds like you are not recommending that.
A full phase intersection light. No, it's overkill in the sense that a light needs to function 24/7. And the demand time for that light is fairly narrow. It creates a longer queue, and it requires you to phase. So when we talk about this corridor, we look at how we platoon the traffic through the lights in a volume that fits the peak hour demand. So what you may not know is our light schedules are programmable, and we phase them in series. So we can move big slugs of traffic eastbound in the AM and westbound in the PM. And every time you add a light, it complicates that analysis. It's not something we do in-house. We require others to do it for us, but we have that capacity in the lights. So a light is not something we're recommending. And I don't think, given the volume of students crossing, that the light phase would function the way you think it would.
Because the volume is too low.
No, it's too high.
The pedestrian volume.
Pedestrian volume is too high. Motorized volume. They're going to stream across. They have a narrow window to get to launch.
Yeah. My only, so I like the lane drop because I agree that it creates hazards when you have cars trying to get around the car that's turning left. And I've seen some close calls there. I have waited, I'm in the delivery business. I've waited 40 minutes to get from the light at Main Street to get up here. Now that was an error on my part because I should have gone around, but I figured going to Main Street wouldn't be a big deal, but it gets really bad at this intersection that, pushes traffic all the way down Main Street. And I don't know how to do it, but the only input I would have is, one student crosses, a car's about to go, another student crosses, a car's about to go, another, and so you have, 6 students over the course of 3 or 4 minutes that hold up lots and lots of traffic. And it's super frustrating. So I don't know.
I will offer the 2 observations. One is I've stood out there and tried to observe human behavior, and I will say that it's not age limited.
Yeah, I should say pedestrians. You're right.
And the second is that there's been a little bit of construction on that corridor that is also creating a hiccup.
Yeah.
And funneling people to that crossing in a way that I think once the improvements are made will change. it is, it was helpful for me to go and stand and observe. I do think that there are, I don't know.
College town.
It's a college town, but there are some other opportunities to try to figure out how to change the volume of pedestrian traffic. It is, though, in that location, I think feels like it's part of the campus. You have residents on one side, you have athletics on one side, you have residents on the other side. It is an issue.
But I think we've had, the south side sidewalk's been closed for 2 years. So that should relieve some of the crossing because people will cross at the mid-block. But you haven't had that opportunity.
It's almost like asking for a little consideration.
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes.
Let a car through every now and then.
Rollers, you can use as incentives.
I mean, you'd think the loose van is driving through, people would like make way.
Well, if you're maybe throwing donuts out.
Maybe, see, that's the answer.
I was very excited to see the shortened crossing distances. Super excited to see it marked all 3 legs, as it was previous to the construction. And also that it eliminates that multi-threat where, somebody stops for a pedestrian and then another driver maybe gets little tired of waiting and like whips around, not seeing the pedestrians, not knowing why the person stopped, which is against the law. If someone stops, you should also stop in the next lane. But eliminating that multi-threat, I think, is super important for safety. And I'm glad to see this in the recommended design. I was also really excited to see in the numbers reported, more people crossing the intersection in vehicles. That was really cool. I think it's a sign of a very vibrant town. And I was also very excited to see that there was mode shift when we dropped the lane, that we actually had a decrease in cars. I looked at it excluding heavy trucks, so I figured that wasn't going to be mode shifted. So I just took them out, and an increase in people walking and bicycling. I guess my concerns are, I get a lot of questions about scooters. I get a lot of questions about how can I bike safely? And I'm kind of concerned that we've created the problem that we've identified, like we already had the problem, but it's almost like accentuated in this, where you're in a bike lane and then you're suddenly running into a curve. Like we got that at RMS, we have that later. You run into a parked car and other places. And so that westbound bike lane just ends. So that's a concern to me. And I would love to provide connectivity for people so that they didn't feel like they had nowhere safe to go and it was inviting to ride. And then I also just had some questions. I really love the raised crossing at Dartmouth Hall. And now that it snowed a couple of times on it, I was wondering how it was to clear. It's always been beautiful when I've gone across it. And I quite love it. I love the accessibility aspect. I love that it really announces that it's a pedestrianized space, and that improves safety dramatically. And I love that I just hear such good things about raised intersections. Miami of Ohio has one at an intersection that they say is busier than this. And they said it works great with transit, it works great with their emergency vehicles. It stops people from trying to like jump through pedestrians at speed, which I think is very important for safety. And it increases invisibility. So I guess I was wondering how is DPW finding clearing our raised crossing?
I don't have an answer for you. I can ask.
Yeah.
I put up a slide of a raised crossing. Is this
Yeah.
the one? This is the one you're referencing. Yeah. So this is if you can envision this type of application on at the intersection of Wheelock and College, the entire road platform would be elevated at grade with the curb, so that when a pedestrian or bicyclist or scooter, anybody who crosses there would be higher than the travel way outside of this raised intersection. Announcing it as something, a place different than the travel. There's some design elements that come into play. It's the length of the ramp. This is a transit route. You need to make sure that you slope it right. There's some safety improvements to get triggered. As you'll see here, there's a number of bollards installed to prevent a car or vehicle from mounting the sidewalk areas, because they are level with the road at this point in the travel way. And then there's some maintenance related costs associated with it. Snow removal suddenly takes on a different perspective.
Is the pathway between the hop and the hood gonna be open?
Yes.
So like, yeah, okay, that's open. Are bikes allowed there?
Yes,
Scooters?
that's college land. I can't speak for the college.
I had a question about the snow removal, like the maintenance. I was looking at sort of some of our tip downs, and was looking into maintenance of them. I don't know when we get around to it. It seems like people recommend using a broom and a plastic shovel, which seems like a lot. But what kind of maintenance costs do we have associated with clearing the tip downs to make sure that they're accessible?
I can't answer that question tonight. I can ask, but the issue for us really is, it's the incremental cost to our overall snow removal process. And making sure that we're taking that into consideration as we make these. If we build it but don't maintain it, it's a problem. Tip down is the crossing, the sidewalk that tips down, typically with truncated bollards, the bumpy little domes, so that it puts you at a crossing that's level with the road. We generally use our sidewalk.
So as envisioned in alternative 4, the bump outs represent curbs, and there is a step off the curb before you cross the crosswalk.
There'd be a tip down at that crosswalk location.
Down, meaning like a little mini ramp.
Yeah, just if you were to stand at the South Main and Lebanon Light, there's a tip down at every one of those crossings. Main and Wheelock, tip downs on all 4 approaches. With truncated domes, which are ADA compliant.
So by law, when you're crossing the crosswalk on a bicycle or a scooter, are you meant to be walking or can you ride?
So I will say that I'm a biker, I'm a walker, I'm a runner, and I'm a driver, and I don't represent any of them as a group. If a light phase turns to a pedestrian phase and I'm on my bike, I will go through the intersection on my bike. I don't dismount and walk it. I think the law would require me to dismount and walk it. I do yield to the pedestrians. And that's my practice, but I don't speak for all bicyclists. When I'm walking, I wait for the light phase and I cross.
Just as a safety issue, a little further down off of Observatory Hill, I have observed, and I'm sure you have too, people whip down that hill and they go right across the intersection, and sometimes they don't look. It scares the heck out of me as a driver because they're just, it's very dangerous. And I just know that, you often get bike traffic off the green, and whatever we can do to make sure that there is proper safety being taken to, it's a negotiation process, but I think that there needs to be, there needs to be a distinct transition that, hey, now I'm crossing a road and I need to watch out. I'm not sure how you convey that, but I think it's important because you can get going really fast. You know, the same thing off of where Dartmouth Hall is, you can, you know, but
Human behaviors, one of those confounding things that are hard to
control. Yes. Yeah.
One of the days I was out here, I'll share this with you. One of the days I was out here, I crossed at this intersection as laid out today. So you have to cross College and then cross Wheelock. And at the same time, I would say someone my age or slightly older carrying a briefcase walked straight down Wheelock and then diagonally across Wheelock while I did the door. And then by the time we got to Crosby, we were in that again. And I suspect that human behavior isn't going to change. It's not age-based. That's the line of sight. That's the, direct line is the quickest route, and that's how I'm going.
Maybe one of the things that I really liked about the raised intersection is that the U.S. Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration indicate that it reduces pedestrian vehicle crashes by 45%. This particular type of thing, and it's used on, basically 2 to 4 lane roads, with places with a bit more traffic than we have, as well as lesser. And it's very recommended in small town urban areas, which I think this is kind of like, as well as like rural villages, which is a little bit like.
Other questions or comments from select board members? I recognize there are some people here who also may want to speak. And unless there are any members of the public like to come forward to speak on this topic, this would be your time. If you could please come forward to the table and if you could give your name and where you live, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Daniel Kai. I've been here a couple of times. I'm the Dartmouth Student Government Town Affairs Liaison. I currently live in Lebanon on Summit on Juniper, but obviously I come here for school every single day. I would say I use this intersection about 6 times a day as a pedestrian, either going to and from the hop or going down to go to the gym. And as a driver, I also probably use this intersection a couple times per week. I wanted to give some of my thoughts as a student and on behalf of Dartmouth Student Government in terms of this intersection. So first of all, I want to say I've personally gotten into a pretty major car accident recently, and I think it's pretty important to consider safety for pedestrians a little bit more. And to be honest, I think it probably is true that safety for pedestrians and making sure drivers don't get into crashes are essentially equally important in this situation. The reason I bring this up is because, as Mr. Hausman pointed out earlier, that this it doesn't seem like the pedestrian problem or the pedestrian quantity is going to go away in any circumstance. So I think it makes sense to in this case consider safety for pedestrians and making sure cars don't get into accidents as equally as important, and then don't not prioritize necessarily cars getting to the intersection as fast as possible. Not to say that that's not important. Sometimes I get backed up on this intersection and I feel pretty crazy, but I just don't want to get into a situation where I would cause an accident or crash into somebody as a driver or operator of a vehicle. The reason I bring this up is because as this proposal currently shows, the lane drop seems pretty ideal, but other proposals that leave the 2-lane solution in does not avoid the problem of cars trying to spin around. I've seen personally, anecdotally, multiple near crashes of that nature, especially with the construction going around, obscuring the vision of drivers going up. As somebody, or I guess one of 2 undergraduate classes that have been here before the construction has started, I can also say that like say two things about that. The first is that like even without the construction, like my freshman year here, I've seen near crashes of similar nature. So I believe the lane drop is definitely ideal as a solution, not just because of the construction. It's because I think I believe in my heart it'll make the intersection safer generally. The second thing I wanted to bring up is something that Mr. Burke brought up earlier about the foot traffic going through the intersection. I can again only speak anecdotally, but because of the construction there, I think maybe about like 40% of the time before the construction, instead of crossing that intersection, I would turn left directly onto the sidewalk. So that's probably not necessarily a directly scalable number for like once the construction finishes, how many people will actually be using that intersection. But I do think you can probably like consider a drastic or at least a significant decrease in terms of foot traffic going through the intersection that will lead to like car congestion.
So you're saying that you would cross at Main and Wheelock then?
Well, so I would, depending on if I see cars going up and down the road, obviously there's another crosswalk right there. Like I can just use that. It makes personally no difference to me whether I cross over there, or I can sometimes like for example, if I want to go, like if I'm coming down also from the gym and I'm trying to get to Main Street, it would make sense if I would just follow that sidewalk down. But since there's construction, I have to cross at that intersection before I can cross back into town on Main Street. So it definitely is causing like a pretty significant increase of use for that intersection as a pedestrian. I said like 6 times a day is about the number I use it now. It would probably be around like 3 or 4 as a pedestrian if the construction is finished. The other thing I wanted to bring up is like, this is a question perhaps like best posed to Mr. Hausman in terms of why alternative 4, like the alternative 4 plan is more desirable than the alternative 4B. Because the 4B, as I can personally, like as I understand it, creates sort of a bike lane and expands the sidewalk on the side of the green a little bit more. The reason I bring this up is because of a problem that other select board members have brought up in terms of the heavy usage of like electric last mile vehicles, like going down that street. As somebody who owns an electric skateboard sitting right there, it sometimes feels a little bit chaotic to have such a narrow sidewalk that doesn't necessarily have a bike lane, especially with people who are parking, they're coming like on and off of their cars and just like without looking left and right onto the sidewalk, trying to walk onto the sidewalk. It sometimes, like, I wouldn't say makes it like super unsafe that it'll lead to a serious accident, but I think personally the 4B as I see it seems to clarify the situation a lot better in terms of the use, like how to use that sidewalk. So preferably I want to say that I feel like 4B makes more sense. So I would also like to hear the reasoning behind why Mr. Hausman chose to propose alternative.
Sure, I'm happy to talk to it. First, it's parallel. You go from diagonal to parallel. You lose parking spaces. Parking is at a premium. Second, there is an inherent hazard when you create this area of confluence of pedestrian and multimodal vehicles, or bikes and scooters, and as you refer to them as last mile. A cyclist riding in this direction will merge into what is currently a sidewalk. And it is we don't have a leg that goes beyond this in any direction. And what you want is consistency in your approach so that people using it understand how it's going to be used. Without that, you create this anomaly where you're pushing pedestrians and bicyclists for this very short window to address that. And then always the concern is the eastbound traffic of bicycles, scooters, and other mobility devices, and the risk that they don't yield or stop.
Okay. The question I have for that is essentially that I feel like currently that sidewalk is like, or even in the plan for alternative 4, it doesn't necessarily clarify the situation and like, what I'm trying to say is like, people just go on it anyway. So.
Again, there were 8 or 9 professionals in the room relying on the data. And in our experience, this is the safest approach. And until there's a solution that looks at the town more holistically, meaning how we incorporate multi-users on our what is currently sidewalks. I don't think we can accomplish it in this leg. Moreover, without it being designated as a multi-use pattern, it's illegal to ride on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I understand that. The reason I bring it up is just like, I understand it's illegal to use these vehicles on the sidewalk, but it is also a fact that people still do anyways. So
again, I have to come up with a solution that I can recommend and support. 4 is the recommended alternative. I'm not going to debate the merits of why we got there. We had several engineers and architects and professionals in the room, and myself, and the data we're fully transparent in the data.
Okay. The last thing I'll bring up is the possibility for like board members to push for a raised intersection, like as Ms. Chamberlain mentioned earlier. I think the reason I bring this up isn't necessarily for when the foot traffic is highest during the day, but when it's like the lowest. I've seen cars, especially eastbound traffic, zooming past the intersection. In a similar fashion, we would say sometimes like bikers or potentially like electrical last mile vehicle users would zoom down the street. It poses a similar risk. When there is an assumption that people are not going to show up at that intersection, people go faster than expected. So I think in that sense, especially let's say like late at night, when like a driver doesn't necessarily feel like there's somebody that's going to cross that intersection and is going over the speed limit, a raised intersection would help like prompt a slowdown approaching the intersection, just so there isn't any surprises like that. I've personally like been in a situation where I was trying to cross and I've seen a car coming up maybe at like 50 miles per hour going up, obviously very severe speeding, but you know, like it's at night, sometimes people drive like that. So I just feel like it'll make the situation a lot safer. And if we cannot like fundamentally solve the problem of having like more pedestrians using this intersection than there are cars, then I think it would make sense to make it at least be like very clarified through a raised intersection that pedestrians have priority, like crossing the sidewalk safely. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other members of the public who would like to address the select board?
Can I ask
And
Sheriff or Rob, are we voting on this or? I mean, this is just a presentation, and so we're just hearing testimony. Can we focus on new testimony?
Yeah, so I would ask that unless your comments are substantively different, if you want to agree with the prior speaker, I would just say, I agree with, what he said. So, but if you have a new dimension to add, that's great. So if you could please identify your name and where you live.
Yep.
Please.
So I'm Ray Chang. I'm a 27, a sophomore at Dartmouth. I live in like Woodward, so like over there. So to come to this meeting from my room, I would have to bike over there, and that is a pretty scary road. And I want to like elaborate more on the experience of biking over there, because if you think about it, like this road is very busy. There's a bunch of like big trucks, especially now because of construction. And I, as a biker, if I bike over there, I would be in like a truck's like blind spot. Like it would be like pretty scary, like especially if there's a curb like jutting out like directly in front of me, and to like merge on that. So I just want to like walk you through that. If I'm coming down there's a steady stream of traffic going alongside me, that would be very scary to merge. So most likely I would still like regardless like bike on the sidewalk, because that's like the safer option.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you, when you say, I don't understand what you're saying by there, can you be a little more specific?
Can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
point at the map.
Yeah. So if we think about like biking from here to here, right? And as we all know, like this road has a bunch of like vehicles going like either way, and with like other trucks and stuff, if I'm here, I would essentially like be in their blind spot. And also like if this is like jutting out right in front of me, then therefore I would have to go directly in front of vehicles in order to merge, which is pretty scary because this road already is a pretty scary road. Or I would like just go on the sidewalk. I feel like most likely me and a lot of students would just go on the sidewalk because it is a lot safer, but it's also not ideal because there are like pedestrians there. And so if there's pedestrians here and cars there, that would be a pretty big like issue. However, if like there is a multi-use path, then that will make it like a lot easier and also separate like the bike and vehicle traffic. I also feel like because I generally bike slower than cars can drive, if I'm there, I would be like kind of like slowing down the cars. And if my traffic flow is like a priority, like I do feel like having like the lane here would like ease up a lot of things. So that's my experience. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have mentioned that going from the bike lane to a stop is a problem, and Jenny's pointed that out at other points.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, please come forward if you could state your name and where you live. And again, if you could address things that have not already been addressed, or if you want to second something that's been said already, that's fine too.
Hello, I'm Elliot Gomes. I'm a freshman at Dartmouth College and I live in the dormitory Little, which is a pretty decent way down there. I would like to talk about the idea of the raised intersection. The raised intersection, the biggest thing that it does is it will provide increased visibility for pedestrians crossing the road. I personally come from the south, and so do a large portion of the people here at Dartmouth College. And for me, this was the first time I've ever seen it get dark at 4 o'clock. This isn't something I'm used to.
Depressing.
It is depressing, but
It's getting better, guys. It's getting
Yes,
better.
day by day.
You have to get out during the sunlight day. Get out and go for a walk.
But that means that a significant portion of the time that I'm awake, it's dark. And if I want to cross a road, that also means that it's even more dangerous. The increased visibility for this could be very helpful for people. And I see a lot of people, I'm not defending this, but it happens. A lot of people cross the roads looking on their phones, scrolling, texting, and
Wearing black.
Yes, wearing black. It's not the
She's
not
not
the
wearing black.
way to go about one's business, but that is what people do. And any little bit of increased visibility is very helpful for everyone because no one wants to see an accident like this. And also, we talked about maintenance, and the raised intersection would actually help lower the maintenance costs because it would prevent snow, ice, and pooling water from accumulating. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers to this point? Okay. Please, again, state your name, location, and anything that hasn't been said already.
Perfect. All right, I got here a little bit late. My name is Chris Miller. I live at the top right corner up there in Zimmerman. I just like to second what Rai-Ching said about the bike lane. I also bike there pretty frequently. I'm more of a road cyclist though, so I'm going pretty fast. And I've definitely had a couple times where cars were turning in and they either didn't see me or they like nearly hit me, and it was like, okay. So that's always kind of a point of contention that I'd like to avoid or generally try to avoid when riding. And then also just on the way here in support of like more lighting in the raised intersection, I was crossing the crosswalk in front of the Pine, actually, the one that's already there that juts out. And there was like a car that just like didn't slow down at all. And so I think, for raised crosswalk and more lighting, it'd be great to, get them to slow down. Across.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and one more. Yep.
Hello, my name is Kevin Hogan. I am a Dartmouth BE student who graduated last year as class 24. I live on 39 South Park Street, so over by the co-op. I'm currently working with Ms. Chamberlain on a project for designing Wheelock Street, and so I'm curious, when you guys talked about like when you were laying an alternative for, I know you said you considered a whole host of reasons.
So was the decision-making process more holistic, or were there specific axes, I guess, or metrics that you guys went through and sort of rated each alternative on? I know you said a couple times you truly believe this is the best decision, and I don't mean to debate the merits of one over another. I'm just more curious about like when the town is considering these types of projects, as another one might be being proposed soon-ish. Like what's good to know, and what like are the factors that you want to like consider when you're rating each proposed solution, or if it's just kind of based on like, for lack of a better word, vibes, like.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's not about vibes. I mean, we're looking at sight distance issues, we're looking at geometry, we're looking at turning movements, in this case, the stack, the queue, the volume of pedestrians or non-vehicular traffic versus vehicular traffic, the peak impact for those, all of those. You know, we know eastbound is an AM peak, westbound is a PM peak for vehicles. We know that lunch in the 2:30 PM traffic, the foot traffic, is the driver, and it's lunch and sports. You know, there are some solutions that may include staggered classes. I'll throw that out there. You know, you don't have to wait as long for lunch. But at the end of the day, we're looking at turning radius of our vehicles. You know, our fleet vehicles, our maintenance vehicles, our fire department vehicles, the volume of vehicles, the nature of vehicles. You know, what does a raised intersection like the mid-block crossing at Dart Hall, how does that impact ambulance, fire, DPW, transit buses? I mean, there's 120 plus transit buses driving in this area on any given day on average. Not all of them necessarily on College, but most of them either on College or Wheelock. So we're looking at all of that and then trying to plug in those numbers and understand how the design solution addresses the safety and improves the intersection based on how we currently approach our road maintenance and our traffic and safety patterns. It's not formulaic where you punch in the data and it spits out the preferred alternative, but I think that there is a systematic approach. And again, I'll end with this. If we're going to make improvements that add cost to the maintenance, we need to acknowledge that up front and support that cost over the long term. You know, every single item we add needs to be maintained. Hand shoveling is different than equipment removal for winter clearing. A bollard changes the dynamics in that way. A bus stop, which we have 54 of in town, surprisingly.
You know, 54?
54 AT stops.
Wow.
Doesn't count the campus connector.
Each one of those requires a level of service. You know, our current road winter maintenance plan, I point this out, is if school is in session, high school or the public schools, our policy is to make sure there's not more than 3 inches of snow on the sidewalk in an event. If we change that policy, it impacts the school system and whether or not they stay open, for example, in a storm event. So adding a mile of sidewalk adds an hour of winter maintenance. Or we add staff and equipment. That's the trade-off. And I'm not arguing against it. I'm saying we need to honor the decision that we're investing in it and then fund the support of it long-term.
All right. Awesome. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments on that topic? We do have other topics to cover tonight, which we should move on to. Unless there's anything else pressing.
Oh, I had some questions. They brought up the nighttime a bit. I was just wondering what type of study was done at night?
So we did have a lighting analysis done, and part of this will be an adjustment to the lighting plan there. What kind of study was done at night? The
Right,
traffic,
Yeah,
the video cameras ran 24/7 from my knowledge. So
do we have a sense of the speeds?
did we collect speed? I don't know if we collected speed.
Because this was the first I heard. I hadn't really been thinking about the speed of traffic at night, so I was just curious if there was.
So we have the ability to collect that data. And we do target data collections based on concerns raised. I think that we can certainly see it when the last time it was collected and what the nighttime speed data looks like.
Mhm. Yeah, and do we have a sense of the annual average traffic
Volume,
around this area?
I could pull it up fairly quickly, but I think we're over 12,000 vehicles a day.
Oh, I thought at college, given the peaks that were given, it would be around 7,000, but I thought they would have collected it.
No,
based
because
on-
the concern, one of the concerns that, as I think shared, was that there are some standards out there that say total volume over 10,000 doesn't warrant.
Pennsylvania says that, but, yeah, or 6,000 per leg, right? But I think we're only around, do we have the data? If they did these 24-hour video surveillance, do we have the counts? Because they're only seeing peak counts right here. Or do we know?
So can I just jump in for a second? I think as much as possible, we want to raise concerns, but
My concern is
yes.
that a raised intersection isn't being considered because the assumption is that the average daily traffic is higher than it is. So I'm asking whether we have the data. And it seems as though we do, because I just heard that the cameras were run over time, right? And we have the data from NHDOT at different points along this same road. But it drops off considerably after Main Street. So the question is, around this time, what's the averages? And based on sort of the peak data and the peakiness of other parts of the street, my back of the envelope guess would be that it's about 7,000 cars. But it's not seasonally adjusted or anything. But the consultant perhaps looked at this or has the data.
Coming over the bridge is 12,000 plus.
Yeah.
East of College is 8,100 and College is 2,900. So it looks like 12,000 to the College intersection.
I think a bit turns off on West there and Main.
Still have
Fires.
8,100 on East Wheelock before Observatory Road, and 28.
Where do you have the 8,100 from? Because I think that was done back a decade ago. And we don't really have another count until Park, and it's around 3,000.
Again, I'm not
But-
sure we're gonna accomplish.
Yeah.
Come up with.
Well,
a solution.
I guess the question is if the consultant found these peak hours, they might have looked at the whole day to find out what the peak hours are, right?
But you don't need to look at the 24-hour cycle to understand peak hour. You look at the AM and assumed AM and the PM slot.
Oh, so it's like based on, they pick the peak hours based on
You see the volume.
observations?
You see the trends. You look at these data trends, you can see the hourly trends also.
So I don't want to actually do the analysis here at the select board. What I'm hearing is perhaps there are, perhaps we should perhaps there are data that can or can't be used in support of the raised crosswalk, but we'd like to revisit that. Is that fair to say in terms of? going
Well,
forward?
if it's being ruled out based on a count that isn't,
I'm not sure it's being ruled out because of
Yeah.
a count. It's a combination of all the things we've discussed tonight.
right, so I guess I'd like to see the count to know, just to make sure it's being fairly considered, just because of the dramatic safety improvements that it provides and accessibility improvements that it provides. Like, one of the main reasons people are hindered getting around is dealing with stuff in these like sort of catch basins that the tip downs end up creating. I mean, they're there, they work really great when they're clean, and they really hinder people when they're not.
So I think what I'm hearing is we'll talk about this again. You don't need a decision.
We kind of do.
Or you kind of do? Do you?
So
What's the time?
Not our decision.
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, Dartmouth needs to design and build this before they open the Hopkins Center. And their construction window starts April. So they're trying to package this so that they're putting back the transit hub and they're doing all the other things at the same time. And the design solution for a raised intersection changes this discussion. It includes drainage improvements. It includes other things that have to be incorporated into it.
Okay. Can we simply get quick analysis from Erica on why, or Erica and Pete, why they wouldn't support, that wouldn't be their first choice?
We've walked through it all. I mean, it's just a matter of, we've had them in the past in town and we removed them because of our inability to maintain them.
We have one right now.
Yep.
In front of Dartmouth Hall.
It's a different kind of crossing.
Mhm.
It's not in an intersection. I'm not turning a
Yeah.
wing plow, trying to remove snow. I'm not, all of those things change this conversation.
Have we had a raised intersection in the town?
I believe we did.
Yeah, we had one on Maynard.
Yeah, on Maynard between the cluster and
Sudikoff.
and Sudikoff. And that was removed.
It's not an intersection between, it was a table, not an intersection between two roads.
Right.
Yeah, it was a raised crosswalk and it was removed. And was there one at
One on Rip.
those are speed tables. Those aren't crosswalks. Was
The one on Maynard was removed. Your understanding is because of maintenance.
I believe so. And now you see it striped to create the appearance of it. So I guess the question to the board is, are we going to dive into the details and open this up, or how do you want to approach it?
So
I think it would be good for Hanover Bike Walk to have an opportunity to look at the specifics and also talk through it. I think the select board does have a responsibility for the public spaces, including our roads. As much as we rely on our staff for engineering decisions. So I wouldn't just say it's Pete's decision.
Hanover Bike Walk is advisory, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I guess I want to respect the effort of the professional expertise that's gone into this. I mean, I
was saying, I was thinking that it would be great if Hanover Bike Walk could have an opportunity at our February meeting to review this.
I'm happy to present our option 4. I'm not going to present all 5 options and open a conversation on why we ended up where we are, and then have a conversation about whether that was the best decision. If option 4 includes a raised intersection or not recommendation, that's fine, but I'm I'm uncomfortable opening the full discussion up because some of them have to come off the table.
Right, no, I mean, Hanover Bike Walk is an advisory committee to the select board, and I thought it would be valuable for the select board, just because this is what the committee thinks about. We had written up things anticipating that this would happen. So you guys have that, and you have the safety statistics associated with the various countermeasures. I think also, since this is the first time this is being presented, it's best governance practice to at least talk about it one more time.
So it sounds like Rob has agreed to come and talk to Hanover Bike Walk about option 4. So it sounds like you'll have that opportunity at your February meeting.
Unless I'm a
Which is next,
grandfather.
which is Monday, right?
Unless I'm a grandfather.
Oh,
What's your grandfather? Yes.
Oh, I forgot about that.
She's due today.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, okay. All right. Can we move on to other topics? Yes. Okay. Thank you all for coming. You're welcome to stay. We have other exciting topics to talk about. So, the first of which is the CPCNH refresh review. This has to do with community power and the kind of default setting for contract renewal. And Rob, do you want to introduce this a little bit?
Yes, I think I'm out of order here, so
yeah, I'm sorry.
bear with me a moment.
We have a recommendation from Yolanda. Yeah.
CPCNH has what's known as a new customer refresh program that when the rate by the default utility falls below our base plan, that they want the governing body to authorize them to do the customer refresh. For everyone in the listening audience and to the select board, CPCNH is an opt-out program that assumes that our costs are equal to or less than the base rate of the utility. And for the first time, the base rate of the utility is lower than our base rate. And I should point out that our base rate is not Granite Basic, it's Granite Plus, and it's 33% renewable. I think you'll see in Yolanda's recommendation of support that even though the renewable energy portfolio that's required by the state is a number that seems higher, that appears higher, it's actually lower than by 8% than the established rate. The state has allowed them to go down to 15.9%. So in fact, our Granite Plus renewable portfolio is 33% or double the green power. And the increase in cost is approximately 0.4 cents per kilowatt hour. An expected increase to the average homeowner, those not on solar, is about $4 a year. I mean, $4 a month, with an opt up to 100% green energy or 50% green energy, an opt down to basic, or an opt out. Without the renewable, without the renew program, no new customers would be added to the Hanover aggregation program. So we're asking you to support our commitment to 100% green energy and support the recommendation of your energy committee, which is to go with Granite Plus and allow for the new customer refresh.
And if people don't want to pay Granite Plus, they can opt out.
They can opt down.
You can always opt out at any time, and you can opt back in at any time.
Monthly. You can opt in, you can opt out or opt down, or preferably opt up. Help us achieve our commitment.
Right, so a motion for approval might be along the lines of Select Board moves to approve the refresh and enroll new customers into the Granite Plus rate. for the CPCNH refresh of accounts.
I'll second that.
Okay. Second, all right. Any further discussion on that?
I just wanted to say, I think it's a good idea because of the flexibility it provides our community. And it's also valuing commitment.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. All right. Terrific. Visions for Creative Housing Solutions.
The board at its December 16th meeting requested that I reach out to council. In your mailing was communications from council that has not been made public. The board can choose to make it public if you wish. The short end, the analysis that she provides says that there are options here under the statutes. The one that our assessing department has chosen applies if the board deems it so, but there is also another statute, 72:23I, that fits.
I or K?
There's I or K
Okay,
fits.
yeah, okay.
So I believe communication from our assessor said it fell squarely under K only. And Laura is, the town attorney, is saying that I or K fits. And then the question is, if it's K, what is the rate? Right now, the only thing that this board can do is grant an abatement. And then in the next cycle, deal with the payment in lieu of taxes request or some other agreement.
I'm fine with abating it.
So abating gives us optionality going forward and it doesn't set a precedent. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
I think I like those two features of the abatement process.
Agree.
Assume we feel like the right course of action.
Are we making a motion?
We will need a motion. Yes, we will need a
Am I
motion.
pre-voting?
No,
it's just more of a discussion.
Looking for your input. Does the abatement route sound? I was arguing that it both doesn't set a precedent and also creates optionality. Okay, so we will need a motion.
And I've clearly not.
I move to abate the. Second half. Right? I move to abate the second half tax.
No, just full year.
Full year tax bill. For the Visions property. Park.
Okay, under 7223. Okay.
7223.
Okay, terrific. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. Any further discussion? No, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Let's move on to second reading and proposed adoption of complete streets policy. The one thing that wasn't clear to me in the packet was it wasn't really a red line. How different is this than what we?
No changes.
No changes. Okay, all right. Well, that makes it easy. Okay. All right. Is there any select board desire to discuss again the complete streets policy? No.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I agree. The one thing that I do find a little daunting in terms of is the very abundant resources to consider as you're looking at this. But I think if there's a comprehensive listing and, you know.
They're getting consolidated, I think, as the federal guidance trickles down.
I think it's good to have them, but I think it might be unrealistic to think that our staff will necessarily read everyone. But I think it's good to have them there.
The only comments I had was mandating private developments, support the policy might discourage investment. And then the other issue was, the term excessively disproportionate. Quantify anything. It's kind of a vague statement. But I mean, it's not going to stop me from moving forward with this and just pointing that out.
Yeah, and we had a whole discussion about equitable, what is equitable?
Right.
What, it's all a little bit loosey-goosey. But it's a little bit aspirational also.
It is.
So.
There's excessively disproportionate though was about the decision to perhaps not do it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's language that David found on best practice policy. And the idea is that then like if for some reason the policy cannot be implemented or the staff thinks it costs too much, there is then that explanation that helps convey what is excessively disproportionate.
Right.
It was sort of how Rob described it last time. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember when NHDOT did it, they talked about they had a specific calculation I hadn't heard before about their safety factors and the return on investment relative to the safety factor. So that might be one way we could quantify it.
It's a policy and we can always propose amendments if we find that there are hurdles.
Okay, so, all right. Unless there are any objections, I would look for a motion.
I'll move to adopt the updated complete streets policy.
Okay. Second, Arthur seconds. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next is abatement for 22B West Wheelock. $1,600 for incorrect water and sewer billing. I don't know that this really needs any discussion unless anyone wants to read.
Yeah, we abate the
Amount of
amount as we just stated.
$1,611.11
West Wheelock Street.
for incorrect water and sewer billing. Second, yes.
I just had a question. Does this mean that there's somebody else who then gets charged this? It seemed like they were mislabeled. I just was trying to understand what it meant.
I know.
No one's getting rebilled.
No.
Somebody just got $1,600 in free water.
You and I pay.
All right,
Yes.
okay.
And
The motion was seconded.
because we're all on time,
Jen,
Laura.
second the motion. No, with motion has not been seconded. Second on the motion.
I'll second.
Second, Joanne seconds, and unless there's any further question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. Okay, let's move on to approval of January 6, 2025 Select Board minutes. Are there any changes, objections? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion.
Move to accept the minutes of the January 6, 2025 Select Board.
Second? Joanna, thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of items 1 to 2 by consent. This is a banner request. Very exciting for the NCAA skiing championships at Oak Hill. Yes, pretty awesome.
And okay, and the skiway.
At Oak, oh, and the skiway too. Okay, nice.
And what?
And the
Skiway.
skiway.
Okay, so it's downhill inward. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. So it's for banners and it's also for gifts to the Etna Library and the motion language, which, thank you, Rob. Actually, we don't need to do the motion language. We can just do,
We moved the consent agenda, right? Isn't that how you do it?
we can actually, yes.
Well, we should read the donation.
But we should
we'll read the donations.
individual donations.
Yes, I'll do that now. So the donations, thank you very much, Francis and Paul Gardent, $100 to the Etna Library. Vicky and Reed Drucker, $100. Frederick Perkins, Patricia Armstrong, $100. Wynn and Mundy Piper, $500. So thank you very much for that. If consent agenda, a move to approve the consent agenda. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Fourth. Thank you. Okay, terrific. We now move on to town manager comments and select board. Rob, anything that you want to add at this time?
Sure, just a quick update. For everyone, the search for the police chief is moving forward. We have convened a community panel. That community panel consists of 10 members at this time. It's a diverse group. And we will be interviewing 4 finalists on the 4th of February. The results will be reported back to you, and as we move forward, the final candidate will have the opportunity to meet with the select board.
4th or the 6th?
The 6th, I'm sorry.
6th, yeah.
Merging all the dates in my head. So that process is moving forward as we speak.
Okay.
That's the only thing I have to report.
Thank you. Committee reports.
Hey, from downtown, in terms of the parking committee, this is not an exclusive group, so, we're not saying anyone can't be members, but right now it consists of Jim Rubens, Robert Hausman, Dave Anderson, Jared Burke, Dave Newlove, who is head of transportation at the college.
Oh, many things, but that's one of his jobs, yeah.
Chris McEwen, Jay Campion, and Chris Swain, Sergeant Swain. So we are meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at Sawtooth. This will be the first meeting. We do have some objectives and key results that we've thrown around. I wouldn't say they've been stamped or anything, but there's lots of ideas. There's lots of opinions. We're hoping to make some good progress on improving the parking experience.
Terrific. Number of things, trustees of trust funds met 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, I guess. It was the kind of end of the calendar year reporting out in December 31st. It was a good year. Walked away with better than my accounts. But I would I defer to Ellen for those details. We did spend a fair amount of time talking about the trustees of trust funds responsibilities when it comes to managing I would call them private funds or whatever they're, the Brissette funds, Bridgman funds, and the fact that there's at the school, the district meeting, they're proposing yet another fund, right?
Correct. Yes, a scholarship.
Scholarship fund. And we talked about how that money is managed. Also reported out that the trustees would like to come and do a presentation to the board probably next month sometime if we can fit it in. Just to give a quick update of, kind of what they're doing. And I think the other good news is that there's one of the amazing things about the community is we've got the Brissette funds that just make Hanover a better place. And we still have funding that we approved to be spent in this fiscal year. So in the next 6 months, 5.5 months, projects, programs to enhance Hanover or the community, the Hanover community. So, and I think that's
no bricks and mortar.
No bricks and mortar. Of course, I'm not sure that's how we would want it, but I think if you knew that, since he was one of the key founders of Cambrian Rink and very involved in Hanover Improvement Society, among other things in the town. But that's what the trust dictates. And so it's really programmatic funding, new programs, new ideas, to make Hanover, in an even better place to live. And then the trustees they have very strict kind of formula in terms of what money in these endowments can be spent on, or how much money can be allocated to the town or the greater community for funding these kind of programs. And the Bridgman Fund, I think this year that's for the school district, has 75,000. And I think that they're saying for FY26, help me here, 134,
That's this year, about 228.
228 for FY26. So I think those are important numbers to be thinking about in terms of how the select board might spend it to, or others. I think I mentioned last time, have put together kind of an application form for said funds, should we want to extend the opportunity for other organizations within the community to apply for that. But I think that's solely within the prerogative of the select board. So that's just something to think about.
Is the application form like going to be distributed to us so we see what it looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I figured if it was on the agenda that, share that. I mean, and I think that's something we'll be thinking about. There's no directive that it's like an application. There's no directive in the language of the trust. This was given to the select board to use at their discretion. And so it's our discretion in terms of how the money is spent.
And it's not part of the budget cycle.
No, we have to appropriate, we have to say that we have 200 and
Just say 230.
230. So we have to, as you guys are putting together the budget, we have to say that we're going to have $230,000. We're going to spend $230,000 from the Brissette Fund. So we'll have revenue of $230,000 and we will expend $230,000. We need authority from the town.
Okay.
To spend that money. And so we got that authority last in May.
But then how it's dispersed or when it's dispersed is then, could be neither. That's what we talked about.
Select board and trust.
Yeah. So the select board makes the decision and basically the trustees, it's their job to make sure it's within the parameters of the trust language. And so instead of kind of guessing what the trust language is, the idea is that we put together a couple page, very basic, hey, what is your program? How does it enhance the town, the community in a broader sense? And it can't be bricks and mortar. And, there's some specific language there. So I'm happy when it's on the agenda to include what I had done. But again, I think it was an application in case the board wants to open this up to the broader community in terms of funding activities. It might just be, we want to keep it to help off, to do some things we want to see from the town plan or, enhancing programming in the town or, flowers, I don't know. So, but I think I would say looking to the staff as we're looking at this budget cycle, if there's specific things that kind of fit the parameters of Brissette, I think that would be, in my mind, that would be a good place to start, and then we can go from there. And then finally, sustainability committee.
You started talking, I thought you mentioned the Bridgman first, but the numbers you talked about were the Brissette, right?
Yeah, Bridgman is for the school district.
Yeah, so it's just making sure.
Yeah, Bridgman is the school district.
Thank you.
And that's funding for K through 6th graders, that program. Sustainability committee met, spent a bunch of time talking about the coalition energy stuff, talked a lot about Earth Day and doing Earth Week and kind of doing it with other communities in the college to kind of have a robust week to celebrate Earth Week in April.
And Parks and Rec.
And the community. They had a very successful styrofoam and Christmas lighting recycling day on Saturday. They had 2.5 big trucks full of styrofoam. It was pretty amazing. It was incredible. And it seemed like there was another.
They weren't really keen on the school board putting in the budget that they're thinking about the e-buses. And I think they're still hoping that e-bus is adopted. And then they're really excited about the sustainability coordinator. And that is getting closer. And they're very excited to be doing a student project with Dartmouth, where they're going to be benefiting from all of the stuff that Dartmouth's learning about their geo-exchange project and seeing how they could evaluate clusters of Hanover homes. That's an exciting new project that they're getting going.
And there was a Howe Library, that was a very busy week, Howe Library Corporation annual meeting on Thursday. And have a facilities meeting coming up just to have the facilities issues thereof. That's it.
Okay, Hanover Finance Committee held a meeting. When was that? January 16th. And it was primarily focused on the school budgets, but the one overlap point was the middle school sports. So we didn't talk about that previously, so I think you got the gist of that. That's it.
Nothing before the Conservation Commission did not respond to.
Jenny?
Trescott?
No,
They-
no, that's a couple times a year.
Yeah. Well, we had, the CIPC last Friday, and regarding the select board, the big issue is, when does the CIPC, when do you guys want them to present? So that's a question. And they have a draft of the proposed program, that has like 18 legacy projects, which are really sort of what we tend to think about as capital reserve that are often funded by capital reserves, and they tend to be equipment replacement programs. And sort of two new kind of big studies from DPW on stormwater and sewage capacities. Yeah, so the big question is, when do we want to have the CIPC here?
Real soon.
Real soon. And we actually heard about a lot of the capital replacement stuff that's in those 18 today. We heard about a number of them. And then, yeah, we kind of approved a draft, and we're putting a couple extra details in there.
In process?
We approved a draft and the details to be added, and our chair was going to add this. So we'll have it. We have it. It's ready. We're ready whenever you guys are ready. That's what we've decided.
But our chair is going to South America for a month,
Yeah.
so.
So we have to extract the actual ready one from him before he goes.
Right.
But we'll be ready.
No, but that work is
So we can
an evolution.
We can do that calendaring now, or you guys can think about that while going to the planning board. The planning board is thinking a lot about what type of zoning changes we can move forward with that will provide some housing opportunities, while Opticos and town staff continue to work on a more comprehensive zoning reform. And the big news, we have to do a big thanks. Ian Sims retired from the planning board. He's going to be dedicating a lot of his time to running Osher, so we wish him luck there. But I think it was 17 years, is that right? That's what I had in mind. I didn't write it down, but that's what I was recalling. Anyway, he's been on the planning board a really long time. Catherine Reiki has stepped up to serve. So we thank them both for their service, and particularly Ian for his long service. And then Hanover Bike Walk had its first walk audit, and it was really interesting. We have some ideas for how to streamline it, and we're thinking about how to collect this information so that it's useful, and also how to streamline the process so that other groups who want to do it, other people in different neighborhoods, can work with Hanover Bike Walk or even do it on their own. We looked at a very small section of Lebanon Street. It turns out the intersections take a long time because they really want you to observe them for a while. So maybe it makes sense to let people choose whether they're going to do an intersection or just do a stretch to sidewalk. But so we're figuring that out. It was very productive. We had some people who were there to be the voice of disabled relatives that they knew and were able to share the experiences that they had where they had like particular difficulties, which was really interesting. And some of them are maybe simple fixes like, oh, when we put a push button, which way does it face relative to the, and they were asking questions about what are the rules versus like how they know users use the button. So it's really good information. It was super interesting for me. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate that people came out, even though the weather didn't warm up as intended, as promised. And then we are also really looking forward to the sustainability coordinator and having the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on West Wheelock and getting those context analysis and speed surveys on South Main and 11th Street. Yeah. So do we have a time when we should be planning to present from the CIPC?
We'll sit with the chair and vice chair. I think we're scheduled tomorrow. Yep. And we'll try to plot that out so we.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? We are going to have an executive session.
We need a non-public session.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Ellen. Thanks,
Thank
Tracy.
you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick.
You need to move that we have a non-public session to discuss items pursuant to RSA 91:1:3. Roman number 2, A, B, D, E, L.
Do I have to become yes?
Callahan, yes.
Gracias, yes.
Cameron, yes.
That's point.
We did it.
We're in,
Good. All right.
we're in non-public session.
Good.